Alright guys, so time is now for a showdown between the Warriors of Chaos, who are going to be led by Kolek Suneater, and Bretonnia, who's going to be led by King Crazy Eyes. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as the build goes, we do have three groups of the Marauder Horsemasters. Now the Horsemasters have higher overall weapon damage than the throwing axes, but again, their armor piercing values are much lower. So essentially you're getting higher base weapon damage plus more range, and of course they're a little bit better in melee, but you are losing quite a bit of armor piercing. Now against Bretonnia, when I play Norska, or even Warriors of Chaos in the past, I usually like to bring the throwing axes because they're just a little bit more consistent against a heavy cap. They can outrun, the Questing Knights and the Grail Knights and all those troops like that, and they do really good armor piercing when they're being chased or whenever they're just hitting anything. So I think that the throwing axes are a little bit more of a well-rounded pick against Bretonnian heavy cav. However, in this match, we're going to be trying something different. We do indeed have the Chaos Sorcerer with the lower metal here, so we have the final transmutation to lower combat stats of our, when the cav come in with these big erect charges, we're going to be able to lower their melee attack by 26 and their weapon damage, so I feel like that's pretty powerful, but the main synergy we're going to be going for is Plague of Rust. So when you overcast Plague of Rust, it does lower armor by 60, which is going to open up a bunch of high damage opportunities for the Marauder Horsemen here. So we're going to see if that really is worth it. Again, the transmutation is going to be quite useful against the cap charges as well. In the front line, we have Marauders. The Marauders are going to be meant against like Men-at-Arms and Chaff and Halberds. They trade very efficiently with like standard Bretonnian troops, aside from Foot Squires. And to deal with the Foot Squires, we have two groups of the Chaos Warriors with great weapons. So these guys have good armor piercing, good base combat stats. They're going to be able to smash those Foot Squires for sure. So we do have the Chaos Warriors here. And then on the flanks, we have the real backbone of our army, which is going to be two groups of the Chosen with Halberds. So these guys are quite good against Bretonnian cav, and just everything on the Bretonnian roster really struggles against Chosen with Halberds. These guys can deal with the infantry, they can kill the knights, they can fight the leadership. They're just very, very powerful. So we do have the Chosen there. Probably the most efficient, one of the more efficient ways for Bretonnia to deal with Chosen is to engage them with Foot Squires, who actually can put a bit of a dent in Chosen, the ones with Halberds that is. And then from there, you rear charge them with like Lewin or your heavy cav, and you can get some pretty good value. So two groups of Warhounds as well to be chasing down archers and just harassing and putting pressure on our opponent's formation. That's pretty much it. So he has King Lewin here, for Bretonnia. He has King Lewin. He does also have a Damsel with the Lore of Life. The front line is going to be a combination of Halberds and Foot Squires, which is a good choice. Halberds are good against, armored Chaos troops as well. They're good against Chaos Knights, SHAGGOTHs, all that kind of stuff. So I like that quite a bit. He does have a couple of groups of cav. I think he has two Questing Knights in total. Questing Knights are actually very strong against Chaos. They have really good armor piercing. They're great against the infantry, and they can honestly fight things like Chaos Knights and SHAGGOTHs pretty efficiently, simply because of how good their AP is. And you need it against Kolek. He has 100, almost 100 armor, 95. It used to be 100, I think. Two groups of archers as well to fend off Marauder Horsemen. One group of spears to kind of protect them. And he does also have some Grail Knights, I think. He has Grail Knights and Knights of the Realm hiding somewhere. I'm not sure where those bad boys are. Yeah, they're back here. So it looks like he does have Grail Knights as well as the Knights of the Lionhearted. Pretty cool stuff. So without further ado, guys, let's get the show on the road. So right now I'm going to be advancing up the hill. My opponent does have a decent little position, so he's going to have a slight advantage here, but I do have the means of harassing and kind of coming in with Hounds and forcing him out of his position, but my infantry are just so much stronger that I figured it would be okay to kind of just go fisticuffs. In the meantime, the Marauder Horsemaster is being pretty efficient at picking apart the Men-at-Arms with polearms here, but again, he does have those poison archers, so he's going to be able to fend me off, and I'm going to have to fall back here. So very well played to my opponent, using those archers and kind of screening me out. In the meantime, Kolek's going to be going for Lord of the Storm here, but my opponent does see it coming, and he reacts in time. I would have done some pretty huge damage, but he does get out of the way, so very well played there, also dodging that. A lot of people don't notice that when there's like other things going on. In the meantime, my Hounds are circling, so I have one group over here who's being chased by King Lewin. The other one I think is like up in the forest somewhere, just waiting to feast on the archers. And it looks like the mainline fight is going to be underway. So my opponent is going to be committing to a huge Questing Knight charge in the front line while I was reforming ranks, which is very good timing. Here comes the massive erect Bretonnian charge down the hill. Definitely going to be doing some serious work to these Chaos Warriors. So very, very good stuff there. But, I mean, the damage isn't too bad. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, these Chaos Warriors took a little bit, but it really wasn't too brutal. I mean, honestly, he took a little bit more on the return. So yeah, Kolek's going to be running in there to kind of intercept those guys and do a little bit of work. And the Chosen with Halberds are going to be forming ranks right here to essentially screen out the cav pressure from the flanks. I don't want him collapsing my mainline formation by just kind of rolling his way down the side. In the meantime, I am rotating the Marauder Horsemasters up and around to try and poke some of these archers. Kolek Suneater is just laying an absolute pounding here on these Foot Squires. You can see a couple of them being punted into the Shadow Realm. In the back, I am able to get on the archers with the Poison Hounds. He does have Spearmen defending, but for the most part, I should be able to break those guys off. And the other Hounds are just kind of sitting in reserve back there waiting to come in. So Chaos Infantry is fighting Questing Knights in the front line, which is great. I have really good armor piercing here. I do pop a Plague of Rust as well, which is going to help the focus fire. So I Plague of Rust them, then I focus them down with the Marauder Horsemasters, which seems to be doing some pretty good damage, although there's some obstruction here. Kolek does get jumped though, so my opponent got a really good Alpha Strike. He comes in Foe Seeker, Stand Your Ground, and gets some really huge damage on Kolek with the Sword of Corone. And he also did have some Grail Knights back there. So I overextended pretty bad, and I definitely got punished for it. So got me pretty good in that particular trait. The Chaos Marauders on the far side are losing to the Foot Squires, but I do have the support of the Chosen with Halberd. So these guys are rolling in to kind of fend off the companions, and it looks like they should be able to do that, and then from there they can secure my flanks. This frontline fight's actually going a little better now. We do get some damage on King Lewin with our throwing squad of Marauder Horsemasters. We use the Transmutation of Lead to kind of lower all the combat stats here. You can see this one group of Questing Knights pretty much put in a trash can. The other group of Grail Knights pretty beat up as well, and Lord of the Storm is probably going to break off these Men-at-Arms with polearms on the high ground. The Chosen with Halberds taking no damage. These guys are just such linebackers. They have like the HP pool of like a zombie mob with just massive power per unit. They're just so damn awesome. Anyways, in the back, King Lewin is finding the weak points in my army, going after some of the scraps, some of these Marauders. The throwing axes, or throwing Horsemasters, not throwing axes, throwing spears, are doing a little bit of good damage against the companions, but I don't have a Plague of Rust on them quite yet, so their armor is really going to help them quite a bit. They do indeed have 80 armor. Halberds are going to be rushing in, but the Chaos Chosen here, the Halberds are going to intercept them and should be able to cut those guys down pretty efficiently, even though they're met versus large targets. And Kolek is also helping out quite a bit, but again, I make that same mistake. I get a little bit overconfident, overextended. You can see there's Grail Knights coming down here. Lewin is here. There's going to be healing and Halberds going off. Now, I do have some supporting fire from the Horsemasters, so I decided to kind of trade and go fisticuffs, maybe thinking that the Horsemasters could help out. You can also see my Chaos Sorcerer is going to be jumping in there. In the back, it's pretty much a complete route for the Bretonnians. The Knights of the Lionhearted are cycle charging to the best of their abilities, which is pretty efficient. My opponent's doing a really good job with that. But the Chosen and the Marauders are just kind of cleaving the Men-at-Arms and the Peasant Archers and all those troops there. And I still do have a lot of infantry. He's doing very good at taking out my leadership, going after Kolek here, getting some really good charges. But for the most part, my Chosen are very healthy, and they're just going to be fighting to the bitter end. Now, the Foot Squires this is a good situation as well. Lewin has also been able to heal up quite a bit. I mean, we got him down to almost half health, but through the help of the Damsel plus his natural regeneration, he was able to get up pretty quick. And also you can see I'm Chaos Sorcerer, not in the right neighborhood. He does not want to be there. So here I'm kiting back a little bit, getting some good engagements on the Grail Knights, just using Kolek very defensively, not realizing that I put him in enough bad situations. I'll probably end up putting him in one more before all is said and done, but I need to be a little bit more careful. Now he's going to get a big charge here, and we're going to be kind of kiting backwards a little bit, but I actually took skirmish mode off for just a second to make sure they focus fired. We're getting some good last samurai shots, but it's still a huge mistake. My opponent gets a fat erect charge. So just one lapse where I was like doing something else in the map, and he gets a really nice charge. But really, it wasn't that bad. I mean, these guys do get terrified, but I take very minimal damage here. But Kolek does get caught, which is very, very tough. So he's going to be fighting. We have focus fire coming in from the Marauder Horsemen. Kolek is definitely just going to get slayed by the Knights here. So one misplay, and ultimately it could potentially cost me the game here, as King Lewin is able to smite the foul Dragon Ogre Shaggoth here with all of his glorious Knights of Bretonnia. Quite a sight to see. Now, my opponent has been focusing most of his resources on taking out my leadership. Now we're kiting pretty efficiently here, actually picking apart the Knights. And, even though I am leaderless, Kolek is gone, the bounce fire is still relatively even, and I've been able to clean up almost everything, right? His archers are gone, his infantry are gone, and all he has are a bunch of really tattered Knights, right? Who've been getting, picked apart by the Marauder Horsemen as well as Kolek this entire game. And the Chosen here, 60 Chosen against all these tattered Knights, they are in the wrong neighborhood. The Chosen are dragging them down. You can see the Knights are falling, and we're just going to be kind of marching after them. He does have the mobility advantage, however. He can be using King Lewin to go after my leadership and get rid of the Sorcerer, so I truly have no leadership. And here you can see he's able to isolate some of my Chaos Warriors with great weapons, which is a good pick. And you can see I actually do fall behind a little bit on the bounce of power. It's starting to go back here, and I definitely thought I was in a lot of trouble here, but I still felt somewhat safe considering I have these two elite Chosen who aren't going to break and run. They're not immune to psychology, though, so Chosen can actually be terror routed, and if your army gets terror routed, like at this point in the game, it can pretty much just be an instant loss. The Chaos Sorcerer with Lord Metal, I didn't want to lose him because he did count for a lot of power in my bounce of power. But I decided to just kind of run him off to the edge of the map and just be really conservative with him, and in the meantime just pick apart the rest of the Bretonnian forces. So the Chosen are going to be dogpiling in here. It looks like the Damsel with the Lord of Life is fighting as well. The Bretonnian Knights are shaken, they're running. The Plague of Rust was cast on them as well before I retreated, and from there they're actually going to be taking a ton of work. I also do charge in with my Marauder Horseman because I know that he can kite me, he can cycle charge me, but with the Marauder Horseman on the hunt, how's that there? I should be able to kind of, she only has 78 speed, right? And Marauder Horsemen have 90, so I should be able to catch her and keep my army from getting kited. The Chosen with Halberds are going to be fighting against the Knights, Questing Knights here, as well as the Companions. So still some powerful units, but the fact that we're able to goon out the healer here with the Marauder Horsemasters is really nice. And that's something that's nice about them as well compared to the Throwing Axes, is they have much better combat stats. I think Throwing Axes have 24 and 18 for their respective combat stats, whereas these guys are 26 and 26, which is definitely quite a bit more formidable, right? I mean, that can make the difference in getting rid of the Damsel or not. So here we're able to get some Poison Hounds to chase her off the battlefield, and the Marauder Horsemasters are just going to be used to support my Chosen. Very close battle here. King Lewin is pretty much full health. My Chosen are very tired and exhausted, but if you look at my opponent's kind of actual true army here, it's pretty tattered, right? And everything that he has is essentially hard countered by my Chosen with Halberds. He's going to start cycle charging a little bit with King Lewin, which is definitely not a bad choice here. His Cav are going to be charging in as well, trying to do any shock damage they can. But thankfully for me, I do have the Marauder Horsemasters, so I can use to kind of pin things in. So when he comes in, I can countercharge him, keep him from running. And from here you can see the Transmutation of Lead coming down from my Sorcerer, who's riding over the hill like Gandalf. in the 2 towers there. So we do get that really nice transmutation, which is going to lower their damage and all their stats pretty much. So for the first time in the battle, I do pull ahead in the balance of power. The Chosen are able to stand firm. The transmutation and Marauder Horsemasters coming in to finish off the Knights is huge. And you can see Lewin is pretty much running. He's going to terror out these guys for sure. But the Chosen is standing firm for the Chaos Gods, not giving a single inch to King Lewin. In the meantime, the Companions are also trying to snipe out my Metal Sorcerer here, which is a good choice. But the Marauder Horsemasters have 32 models. There's Poison Hounds coming in as well. And even though these are the elite of the Bretonnia Knights, I'm going to Plague of Rust them. I'm going to swarm them with Hounds and the Horsemasters. And we should be able to drag down these Knights here as their HP pool is very, very low. And you can see they're actually wavering, which is good. So Lewin with a little bit of cycle charging, going after some of my Horsemasters. My opponent does charge in with the last of his forces here. That's pretty much going to be it. I do have Poison Hounds. I have a lot of stuff here that's keeping Lewin from cycle charging. So my opponent could potentially cycle charge, pull back, and get a ton of value on my Chosen. But you can see the Horsemasters are in here. The Poison Hounds were just in here a moment ago. And my Chaos Sorcerer, I pretty much sacrificed him to the gods to just pin Lewin in for a moment, get him a little bit lower. But the Horsemasters keep coming back, and I'm able to use their mass to pin in Lewin. He's not able to get away from the Chosen, and I just have so many of them. 44 here, and then right here there's 56. He tries to get away again to do some cycle charging, but I try and corral him in with the Marauder Horsemasters, and he's slowly just being dragged down by the Halberds, and that's going to be all she wrote for Bretonnia. So very well played to my opponent. I would also like to articulate that that is a very hard matchup for Bretonnia. I think that Chaos has a pretty intrinsic advantage there. It's tough for them to deal with the Chosen and the heavy infantry and stuff like that. But my opponent did a really good job and made it into an extremely close game. His King Lewin play was very good. He's able to capitalize on 1 or 2 mistakes I made with letting Kolek get caught. And every time I overextended, it felt like my opponent was like right on top of me, like with Lewin just going after him. So thankfully, though, we were able to stabilize by chasing off his infantry with the Hounds and his archers, and then from there, the Marauder Horsemen, I was able to use them to kind of pin in his cav and clean up in the late game. So yeah, it was definitely a very close, fun game. So very well played to my opponent, the Popo. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this Chaos vs. Bretonnia game. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.